In this lesson, we're going to be working with drawables. So far in this course, we've created a lot of apps that do a lot of interesting things. But visually, our applications have not been very interesting at all. They've been pretty much square buttons, square text boxes, black and white. And that might have worked well if we were writing for Windows 3.1. But in developing for mobile today, that's not going to cut it. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at how to make our UIs much more interesting. The really neat thing is that it's not going to require any complicated code, and that we can do it all with XML layouts. So let's just jump right in. So for our example, we have an image button. An image button is typically something that you would want to style to be more interesting. You may leave your text boxes square and rectangular, but image buttons quite often want to have some shape and some color to them. So that's a really good way to accent your application. Our image button just has the Google logo. And the Google logo is a PNG file with a transparent background, so the black is just bleeding through. And in the designer, it just looks like a rectangle. So let's take a look at the source. In the source, we can see we have a drawable for the Google logo. And everything else is the same until we get to the background. And we also use a drawable called button background. So previously, in our drawable folders, all we've put in are images. But we can also put in XML files and create something called a drawable, which is indeed something that the Android operating system can draw on the canvas. And we can describe it completely in XML. So let's take a look at that button background drawable. And here it is, very simply. And we're actually declaring two of them. We're declaring one called button gradient, and then another one called button pressed gradient. And we're using them depending upon the state of the button. Either state pressed false or state pressed true. So we can use a different drawable depending upon what state our widget is in. And this applies for all widgets, not just buttons. So if your text box has focus, you can use a different drawable, perhaps to highlight the border. Or if you have a list item that has selected, you can use a different drawable to indicate the selection. So this is a really good way of being able to show state on your widgets. So let's take a look at that button gradient drawable. The button gradient calls out for its drawable a background, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. And then it has a shape item. And the shape item is a basic rectangle. So that's going to be the rectangle that goes around our image button. But it's not going to be just a plain rectangle, because we're putting in a corner radius of 5 pixels. So we get rounded corners. And then we have a stroke. And if you remember the graphics lessons, a stroke is essentially a line. So we have a 1 pixel border, and it's a white border. So we're going to have a rounded corner with a 1 pixel white border around this button. And then we're going to have our gradient. And our gradient is going to be shades of white, going from essentially half darkness to no darkness. And essentially we're going to blend this gradient with our drawable in the background. So at the most, we'll mix the color with half white to lighten it up. And then there will be no mix at one point. And it's a linear gradient being run at the 270-degree angle. So it's a little bit of a diagonal. So let's take a look at our background drawable. And that carries along the corner and our border, and then just a solid color. So we've got a solid color, and then we're going to apply that gradient to it. There is also a button pressed gradient, and we'll take a look at that. It's actually same corners, same stroke, same gradient description. The only thing that's different is it uses a different background. And the only thing that's different about that background is the color. So basically, we're going to change colors when the button is pressed, but all the other effects will remain the same. It will still have rounded corners, it will still have a white border, and it will still have the same gradient wash. So let's take a look at how it looks. So here's our button with the gradient wash. I used the green as a basic color, and then you can see it's lightened up to white up in the top. And then we have our rounded corners and our white border. When I click on the button, I've used a different basic color, yellow, but I still have a gradient wash, and I still have the rounded corners, and you can almost see the white border. You may quibble with the colors, and that's always one of the fun parts about creating a UI that's a little bit more interesting. But that's how to use drawables to make your UI more interesting and have more to talk about.